Hey there, internet friends. Welcome to another episode of That Nerdy Site Show, a weekly podcast where the team members from That Nerdy Site get together to talk about our lives and all of the nerdy things we love about them. I'm your host, Trevor Starkey, and joining me, we have an almost full crew this week. We have Jazz Foster making her triumphant return to the normal That Nerdy Site Show. How you doing, Jazz?
Okay.
Do,
Bad.
doing okay? Doing all right? We have Frank Bazzani. How you doing, Frank?
Doing good. I'm excited to chat with y'all.
And we have Cameron Abbott. How you doing, Cam?
Hey, what's going on? I'm doing all right.
Doing all right. Almost a full crew. No Logan this week. He had some personal events that were kind of like conflicting, but almost a full crew because this is our 100th episode of That Nerdy Site Show, not counting like all of our miscellaneous Patreon early access episodes and stuff. 100 of the normal episodes. So shout out to that milestone. That'd be fun to get as many of us on board as we can. But apart from that, it's going to be mostly a regular kind of episode. We will kind of talk about 100 episodes of That Nerdy Site and just kind of the last 2 years as kind of like a little retrospective component. But other than that, other topics we'll be talking about, just kind of catching up with Jazz in general will be kind of we'll kick the show off with that a little bit. Frank did see Venom, Let There Be Carnage.
Let There Be Carnage.
Venom,
yeah.
Let There Be Carnage. I just
They
have
say
it
that
Venom 2
400 times
in the doc.
during the movie.
So we'll talk a little bit about Venom 2. I wrapped up Ted Lasso Season 2, so I will be talking about that. Both of those will be kind of spoiler-free topics, and anybody else who has any input on those is able and free to jump in. And then we'll kind of wrap up with Cameron brought the idea to the table of just kind of a general, like, let's talk about the last couple years of That Nerdy Site and where we started versus where we are, which we'll be doing a little bit as well, kind of in a couple weeks when we hit our second anniversary or 2-year anniversary as well. But kind of get the jump on that here. But before we dive in, a little bit of housekeeping. If you like what you hear, please remember to like, subscribe, rate, review, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. And if you're feeling generous, you can still support us on Patreon at patreon.com/thatnerdysite, just like our wonderful Patreon producers do. We thank them very much. So yeah, let's kick things off with Jazz. Jazz and I did sit down and record kind of this month's early access Patreon episode that you can hear if you are a Patreon supporter of $1 or above, where we talk about Halloween memories and stuff like that. But this is Jazz's first time on the regular show, probably in over a year, since like early pandemic, I think. So how you doing, Jazz? How you been?
I've been.
You're still around. You're surviving.
Yeah. I'm better now, so I'm back.
It's good. We touched base a few times kind of over the year, and you were kind of having some various job struggles, of course, as a more server like public facing, customer focused kind of thing. Pandemic definitely took a toll on those industries, obviously. But you weathered the storm. You're hanging in there. Any crazy stories from the last year you want to kind of share to catch us up to what it has been like being Jazz Foster?
Yeah, well, I don't work brunch anymore, so that's a blessing. I don't have to wake up before 6 in the morning, which is lovely, and I'll never do it again, hopefully. Yeah, it's been wild being in the service industry and also being in this pandemic, and people were very, very, and people showed their ass a lot, I guess. That's maybe the best way to put it.
Yeah.
It was just like, you're embarrassed for some people, but it was just not easy and not fun. And working at a corporate place didn't help. So it was a rough stretch of time. But it's gotten better. I still do service industry part-time. I am a bartender at my karaoke bar that I frequent. I think I told Trevor this. I was out drinking there one night, and I'd been laid off from the brunch gig because their AC broke in June in Texas, so they could not stay open. And the manager was like, "Man, we need help." And my friends were like, "She's a bartender." And I was like, "Oh," and now I have a job.
Thanks for volunteering, guys.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool. And it's better. It's weird in a lot of ways, but it's definitely better. people are generally more respectful, and the ones that aren't are shown the door pretty quickly because it's a very like close knit staff, which is way nicer than just being thrown under the bus for everything. Yeah, it's wild, but it has its good moments too. So that's been good. Logan and I are finally not roommates anymore. I say finally, like it was, it's a mixed bag.
Mm-hmm.
He's a better friend than a roommate, and I think so am I. And he lives with his girlfriend now. He's doing the thing. I haven't actually seen his house yet. I don't get out much. But I've heard it's nice.
I've seen like 2 walls of it, basically.
Yeah.
I've just seen a closet of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of those walls was the closet, yeah.
Yeah. I've only ever seen a closet in his house. Because I guess that's what Shravia does. She just shoves them in there.
You need to do your little podcasting thing? Yeah, just get a...
Yeah, go to your Harry Potter room to go talk about your nerd shit.
He deserves that. I think I mentioned this on the Patreon one, but to tell the full story, I was moving out of the condo that Logan and I shared, and he was not there. Logan is the type of person, love him dearly. He just put most of his packing off to like the last minute. So I was like, so I was packing for like a week. I'm trying to get everything together, like get everything clean, and trying to do like fill the holes in the walls and all this stuff. And he wasn't there, and I was like, okay, fine. So I'm trying to get it all done. And I was taking down my rubber duck collection, and Logan, all the time, would go in my room. I left the door open, so it was not like a breach of privacy. He would go in and he would move ducks around. He was just like, she won't notice. I always noticed. And I was like, what would be fun? I have 13 little teeny tiny mini ducks, and I hid them in his stuff because he wasn't there. And he has been finding them. He found a bunch of them up front, and there are still like 3 or 4 he hasn't found yet. And I think it's really pissing him off now, which is really fun for me because there's still some out there. But like, there was one in the gas cap of his car. That was a proud one for me. There was one in his pancake mix because everyone knows Logan loves pancakes.
Yeah.
I thought he'd find that one first.
The banana one was my favorite. The one that was like in the banana.
I was so mad. He found that so fast, and he was like, we never play this game. It's so weird that we just decided to play it, and I was livid that he found that one so fast. But there are still some good ones in there that I think are going to take him.
Yeah, I remember. I remember the gas cap one because you were kind enough to, at least with me. I don't know if you shared it with Frank and Cameron, but you shared me kind of the list of where everything was. So I was talking with him at one point where he had it was after that initial he had found a batch of them, and I was like, but he hasn't found the gas cap one yet. And this was like 2 or 3 weeks after the move. I'm like, are you just not driving a lot? Is that what's going on? And it was like, oh yeah, he's working from home, so I guess that would have played a role in it.
They drive Shravia's car more. I'll send you the video of it, but I told Shravia.
Yeah, she mentioned
it. We had a girls' wine night, and I mentioned it to her because she was like, "Where do you want me to put all these ducks?" And I was like, "No, they're yours now. Like this is not. They're not returnable. You're gonna have to display them in your home." And so I was like, there's one that I'm really scared because he hasn't found it, and I don't know if it fell in the gas tank, I don't know. And so I told her, and she was in the car, and they stopped to get gas, and she was so excited. So I have a video of her from the passenger seat being like, he's getting gas, and just watching him open the thing and just be like, so upset. I was like,
here's the thing, I did not know that first part of that this was punishment for him putting off his packing. Which, by the way, the reason I laughed is because that is the most Logan-ass thing I can say.
Oh yeah, I put one in his little James Bond Funko. I don't know if he's found that one yet.
He did, yeah. He found that one. That was one of the early ones he found, and yeah, I was just going to mention that because obviously No Time to Die just came out, and whenever we do our No Time to Die episode, it will be after Logan has seen it. I went and saw it this weekend, but we'll cover it once Logan has seen it as the big diehard Bond fan. But I also will add kind of on that moment. Wario64 tweeted out this weekend of here's a collection of all the Bond movies for $60, and I was like, well, I don't have any of them, so I'll go ahead and pick this up. And I basically just messaged Logan a screenshot of the order of I don't know if we're gonna do anything with this, but here I now have the first 24 Bond movies and then No Time to Die,
Sure.
I will eventually get that. And he was like, "Oh, we're doing something with that." And I was like, "Sure we are, Logan. We'll do something with that when you actually commit to doing something with that, sure." But I have it here as a thing that we may do Bond something down the line, but
I know he still wants to do, because I have never seen a Bond movie,
Mhm.
like full start to finish. I've seen
You lived with
pieces.
him for how many years, and he couldn't get you to sit down to watch a Bond movie?
Well, it was kind of fun for me to keep saying no.
Sorry, I
3?
yelled so loudly my camera went out.
I see that.
It's impressive. Man, Logan and I lived together for 3 years.
Yeah, it was,
Something like-
I mean, it was
something like
basically like as soon as he moved out there, he moved out and was living with you, right?
Yeah.
So somewhere around 3 years. Yeah, no, but I never saw a Bond movie. So he always wanted to do. He still wants to do like a Bond podcast where he rewatches and I watch for the first time and we react in kind.
Yeah.
And then you can just be like, "This movie is misogyny."
Yeah, I think I'll get on his nerves a little bit, but that's what I'm good at.
Go for
So.
it. 100%. Like Ian Fleming deserves it for his work. Because if you think Bond in the movies is sexist and problematic, in Ian Fleming's work, he's worse.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. He had to make it appealing to an audience somehow. Tone that back.
The white men in the 40s.
Yeah, that's what I'm up to. And I have another new job. I do community management part-time for a board game company. They're super cool. They're very nice to me. I went to their like lab. Technically, they work out of a research lab because the founder is a professor at an Ivy League college, actually, which I hadn't considered. But yeah, Dartmouth College.
Dartmouth.
Yeah.
Fancy.
So she has a research lab, and that's where we're based out of. And I visited when I was in New England this past week. And it was super cool. It was a lot of fun. My boss wears Heelys in the office. That was an incredible revelation for me. I cannot
rad.
stop thinking about it. I will never stop thinking about it.
That is rad as hell.
Just him like, and they're just his office shoes. Like, we ordered lunch, and he was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go pick it up." Took off the Heelys, put on some other shoes, walked out of the office, and as soon as he came back, Heelys back on. It's like,
What?
Max, you're like Mr. Rogersing this, but like with Heelys.
I mean, sometimes you want to just get across the lab floor quicker. I get it.
I suppose.
I mean, it
But
definitely
that's a
seems
good
like
job.
a potentially dangerous thing in a
I was gonna
lab,
say,
but
here's the thing: this person, so it's a lady, so it's not who I'm thinking of.
Oh no, I'm sorry. This is I have two bosses. The woman is the founder, but Max is a guy. The VP is a guy.
His
And
name's
that's the
Max. Okay,
Heelys.
I was gonna ask if his name's Dale, because there was a kid that I went to school with from junior high all the way through high school, only ever wore Heelys.
It was so jarring. I thought Heelys were dead, and then I saw him start to glide, and I was
Heelys
like,
never
"You're
died.
kidding me."
Heelys never die. You can't kill.
yeah.
You can't kill what's already dead.
Hope he doesn't listen to this. I think the Heelys are fine, Max. It's just weird.
That a grown ass man was wearing Heelys.
It was just surprising, but somehow very on brand. I don't know. If
Super
you
cool.
saw him, you'd be like, sure. Yeah.
There's a specific kind of person
mean,
that I can think of. Did he wear like button down shirt, long sleeve, rolled up sleeves? No.
Graphic
Okay.
baseball tee.
I mean, yeah. Admittedly, I don't
There you go.
I don't play a ton of like tabletop games or board games or stuff. But like board game company founder, I'm like, yeah, I get hate. Like Heelys, that makes sense to me. That's
100%.
not outside of the realm of possibility.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, is that
Yeah.
he wears the Heelys just in the office, though. That's the strange.
I mean, like, but even that, I get that because you want those in like a controlled environment. Because if you're just walking down the street to grab food or something like that, you're like the concrete's gonna mess those things up. So.
And that is what he said. Yeah, he was like, it's very hard to wheel on pavement.
Yeah.
The world isn't meant for Heelys.
No.
It wasn't built for this technology.
No, I mean
never was.
not long term. Like the commercials for those shoes that you would watch, like they want to sell you on the idea of like walking down the street or playing, in the yard or something with playing in the street with your friends on Heelys. But that's only so they can sell you more Heelys because those things are gonna like burn out real quick, and then you're gonna have to get a new pair. So yeah, I respect his strategy.
I know
had
multiple
them-
children that had their Heelys taken away because they kept on like slipping on them and getting hurt real bad.
That almost goes into my thing because I had them when they first came out and they were the shit, and I loved them, except for I never put the wheels in because they were dangerous as fuck and I would always fall. I didn't I couldn't do the Heeley thing, so I had Heelys without the wheels all the time, and I wore them for years.
Wow.
They
Here's the
were
thing,
all
though.
white too. I was ahead of
Heelys
the curve.
only work in like one stance.
Yeah.
It's the Heeley stance that everybody's in when they wear it, and they do it because it's that weird like 1 foot in front of the other glide forward.
Mhm.
That's all it is.
Yeah. I mean,
And
like,
there's like a run up to it too. Like there's like you have to like do some movements to get some rotation going on them. Like it's a whole thing. I know this because I went to school with a guy who wore them all the time, everywhere. And Dale, like, love him dearly. I'm pretty sure his dad was in the mob. That aside, it's a whole thing. It was a joke because, like, anyway, his house was just like ostentatiously, like, just ridiculously, like, decked out in like old world stuff. So it's like smuggling is happening here. I guarantee it. Like, there's no way his dad isn't smuggling something, and Nicolas Cage is gonna break in because there's a clue that leads to the Declaration of Independence. I guarantee it.
A lot of that stuff was scuffed up because a kid with Heelys slammed into it as he fell out.
Yeah, no, like 100%. There was like rooms he wasn't allowed to be in, unless he had his shoes off because, like the rooms that had like wood flooring, he's like, oh yeah, I never go in there. It's like, why not? He goes, because I can't wear my Heelys in there. It's like,
You wear your shoes in the house at all?
yeah, some people do. White people, I don't
Heathen.
understand.
I hate that shit.
I mean, I grew up like just wearing them, like I like yeah, it just was never a like, oh, take your shoes off kind of thing in my house. And it was always like, because I feel like that was, at least for me growing up, and again, white guy, suburban, like Scottsdale, like South Scottsdale, to be fair, not like North Scottsdale where it is like $1 million homes and stuff. But yeah, I remember like it was very weird when I would go to a friend's house and they did have the like, hey, please take your shoes off kind of thing, because I was like, that was just so out of the norm of of like what we would do. And like, you know, it was like, if you're a guest in our place, do whatever you want to do. I don't, like, if you want to take your shoes off, okay. I'm gonna be a little weirded out by that because I'm not, you know, a huge fan of feet, but whatever. But yeah, when I would go to I don't think it is. But yeah, I was just it wasn't until like, you know, like 5-10 years ago where like people started being like, that's really fucking weird that like people wear shoes in the house. I'm just like, oh, it was just like always that was just kind of always the thing. Like now I don't, because I'm never going anywhere, or if I'm going somewhere, it's only to leave the house. So yeah, now I have basically like a pair of shoes by the door that I'll slip on when I go grab food or something like that, and then I take them off. But like it was just kind of a, well, I'm like, I get the shoes on as part of my morning routine. I go to work. I wear the shoes all day at work. It's not like I take shoes off in the office. And then I come home and I just like, it wasn't part of the like, oh, it's time to disrobe and like get ready for bed, and that's when the shoes would come off typically. So it was just kind of like the routine. And you know, back in the day, it was like that was the thing, but for school instead. So yeah.
My family was a bit different because we either you took off your shoes when you came in to the house, or you would come in, go to your room, change out of like your clothes and change to like, you know, afternoon clothes or like relaxing clothes, and take off your shoes there. So if you say, for example, if I was getting ready for church, or if I was like dressing up for a purpose or reason, I had my dress shoes in my room that I would wear. Other than that, my regular sneakers were always just by the door. So those are like the distinction between the two. But yeah, no. So I kind of lived a hybrid life. But you know, I totally get why people are like, don't wear shoes in my house. You're tracking dirt in all over my carpet. This is a good carpet, you know?
I mean, like, and I guess part of that is like, we had like very long driveways and stuff. So like like I wasn't tracking dirt in when I was coming into the house. So it was like, if I had any dirt or mud or anything on me, it was like, well, it got like taken care of by the long walk in and the mat outside and stuff like that. So yeah, it was just one of those. It just wasn't a thing that I dealt with or encountered that much. But
a lot of people, they deal with like a lot more wet climate, so like mud is much more prevalent, and that's not really the case here in Arizona. So.
Especially because I want to say when I was like
people that have lived in Arizona on this podcast now. Heck yes.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Um,
Granted, Jazz did live in Tucson, which
It still counts.
that's
It's
I
the
mean
same.
that's like
baby!
Tucson is
What it
extra
do?
Arizona, like
yeah, like
if
let's be
anything.
totally fair here. Like the scrungy butthole is still part of the body. Tucson is still part of Arizona.
Bear down.
Sure. But I also I'm also realizing that as you kind of mentioned that, Cam, like there was definitely a move when I was like, I don't know, 10, like middle school age, I want to say, that like everywhere around me went from like grass lawns to like desert landscaping, and my parents included. Like they got rid of their front and back lawn and just turned everything into gravel and rocks. And I was like, well, fuck, now it sucks because now I can't do slip and slide or anything like that. And it was nice having grass in our backyard, but I get that they didn't want to pay for the sprinklers or whatever. But yeah, so that was another element. It's like now there's just nothing for me to actually be tracking into the house. Like, so yeah, there was like a definite movement of that in the, what would that have been, like mid to late 90s in my neighborhoods and among my friends. So maybe that was why it was another like, oh, it was a weird thing when people were asking it, because yeah, we weren't tracking anything in. It was just like,
There was that move on it. My family in a house we lived in didn't have grass in front of it anyway. We had grass in the backyard, but the front yard, which was, to be fair, we lived on a corner house, so our front yard was like the corner round. So we had a very large front yard, and it was always rock, like always. And God help me, we also had pine trees.
pine trees is weird for like Phoenix area.
It's weird.
It's super weird, and the worst part was the pine needles would fall off when they died, and they would be in the rocks. And
Trees will do that.
You have to rake the rocks.
Yeah.
And we had dedicated rakes for the rocks because the rocks would just fuck up the rakes super bad.
Yep.
And it was the worst. And I always got that chore, and it would take me 2 Saturdays to do it. And I would just have these monster trash bags just full of pine needles. And it's like, God help me. I hate this.
I remember going from
so
the chore that I had was, it used to be like mowing the lawn, and then it turned into that of like raking the rocks, and it was like, this sucks. This is way worse. And yeah, it was the same kind of thing. It was like we had from the like the lawn days, we had like the plastic, cheap easy rakes, but then when it was like rocks, now it was like, okay, now we've got to get like the heavy duty metal stuff to scrape along, and yeah, that was not fun. I had to deal with,
it was the worst. Hated it
because my parents also had like rental properties and stuff, and I would have to, like, they still had lawns, so I was still mowing lawns and stuff at the time, but one of them in particular had, I want to say, like between the front and backyards, like 17 palm trees that like were just always dumping palm fronds, and so those were like a big old like mess to just, like, I mean, those are just like grab those things and throw them in a garbage bag or something like that.
They're also like sticky and gross too, because their sap gets out of them.
I mean, like these were like, I mean, by the time they're falling from the 30 feet in the air, like they're falling because they're so dried out now that.
Oh, gotcha. I was thinking like they had trimmed them or something.
Yeah, no. These are just like the husks and stuff like that. Yes, when we were like, I was never the one trimming those trees. They would hire people out, and basically, as part of like trimming, it was on them to clean everything out. So yeah, it was.
This is the difference between Scottsdale kids and Mesa kids. Mesa kids had to.
I mean, there was no way these were, well, because yeah, this was also
we're
like
talking like the 30-foot tall ones.
Yeah.
That professionals go do.
Yeah.
I was making a joke about that.
Yeah.
No. Funny enough, I actually can't mow lawns. I never have been able to.
Because like asthma.
Allergies.
Okay.
The first time my parents ever, it was a big deal. They're like, Cameron, your brother's going to show you how to mow the lawn. This is the lawn that you're going to mow from now on, and you're going to slowly move to the other lawns as your brother gets older and like moves out. And I'm like, okay, I'm ready for this. Like, this is the one thing my brother loves to do. It's awesome. I've been wanting to do this for years. I mow the little lawn that I had to stop halfway through because I couldn't see because my eyes had swollen up so much that like it was actually harder to see. And I did my best to finish. And I went to my friend's house, and his mom freaked out because of my eyes, called my mom. And that's when we discovered I am severely allergic to pollen. Yeah, it is truly awful and terrible. So I've always been envious of people who mow lawns, because I've always my dream lawnmower is one of those John Deere tractor lawnmowers where you sit, you drink your cold drink.
Sure.
As you drive around your yard, mowing around. Do I have to drop, like, oh, did I already finish mowing? I'll just drop another level. Keep mowing.
Anyone
Like,
that has
like-
those for like a personal home is just the biggest goddamn tool. Like I was admittedly the
It
same
is
way. I was like, that would be way
luxury
cool
defined.
to have that. But I'm like, that really only makes sense if you have like a 20-acre lawn or something like that. Or
But it-
like
that is-
my
that is
complex,
yeah.
they'll wake me up at like 7 a.m. because they'll be out there like mowing the lawns out there and,
But if you
and
had a
stuff.
lawnmower like that, wouldn't you be like, hey, neighbor, let me mow your lawn for free? I just want to keep mowing lawns.
No.
Like, come on.
No.
That's the
Like-
Hank Hill.
Like that 100%. Like when I see those lawnmowers, I'm like, luxury. This is luxury right here.
It's just a slower go-kart with a knife on the bottom.
Yeah.
All right.
Right?
I guess.
That's a win.
It's
Yeah.
I love though
Name
that
something. You just said the coolest thing I've ever heard.
I love how envious you are of people who can mow lawns, though, because I immediately thought, wow, the grass really is greener for Cameron.
Huh.
Because it was a chore that very quickly became like not a fun chore growing up, especially having to do it at like 5 different houses in freaking Arizona summer weather and stuff. It was like,
yeah, there you go.
yeah, that was a nightmare.
There's that between it was mowing the lawn, grilling, anything that had to do with like something that could hurt me. I was super wanting to do as a kid, as a chore.
Just being outdoors was you know, that Cameron just looked out like a bubble boy, just being like, oh, I wish I could go outside.
I wish I could say that wasn't always the case, or that was never the case, but that's not true.
Yeah.
Oh, my friend would be like, "Oh, hey, we can't go over to my house, Cameron. We just mowed our lawn." It's like, cool. We'll wait a few hours, and then I can come over.
You mentioned Jazz. You moved. And Logan recently moved. Did you moved into a house in like the suburbs, right? So do you have a lawn to mow now?
Yes. Bought a lawnmower, bought a washer dryer. I feel so adult. It's incredible.
Right.
It
Yeah, take
is.
that with you now. That's a
Yeah, it's mine now. I live in the epitome of like the television suburbs. Like it is incredible. Just moving in, we drove up with the truck and like 3 white ladies talking on the sidewalk. Hi. And I was like, oh, it's one of these. Okay, yeah.
Great.
And it is.
Are you in a suburban hellscape?
Kind of. I think I told Trevor this. 2 of my neighbors I've discovered now, not just one, because one was weird, but 2 of them have what I'm going to call a spy ramp in their backyard.
Yo, yes, you are in it. You are in true suburbia. Congratulations.
This shit is insane. This is
Yeah.
crazy. Like the first week I'm here, I let the dog out in the backyard and she's like barking at someone on the other side and I hear, oh, hang on. And then like a head pops up above the fence. This fence is like 7 feet tall. I'm like, what the fuck? Someone looking down at me. Oh, I just got up on my little eye box. She admitted it too. It's like, damn.
Oh, they have no shit.
Damn.
Like suburban people get so fucking bored. All they can do is spy on other people.
It's wild.
Yeah,
Last week.
There's a
last
full
w-
HOA, isn't there?
I honestly couldn't say because I rent, so it's doesn't feel like my problem. I don't.
I guarantee there's an HOA.
There might be. I know the landlord was like, make sure you keep the lawn mowed or whatever. I was like, well, yeah, duh. And
Try to
honestly,
paint
my
your house a different color. See if people come out with torches and pitchforks.
so again, not my house. I don't know. Everyone seems friendly enough, but it's just weird. It's just weird, man.
Yeah.
And they're so, like I said, the other neighbor, like last week, climbed up on his little. I thought the dog was like barking at the squirrels. I was trying to get her to stop. No, she was barking because there was a dude like halfway over the fence. Like, you know what's going on with those people? And I was like, what?
No,
You're in my
I mean,
yard. Like they're renovating. Also, can you go away? Yeah. Shit is whack. But it's like very cute. And the house is nice.
It's very
It-
cute in a Stanford wife kind of
Yeah,
way.
yeah, it's
I mean-
very Stepfordian. Like,
I mean, sure. I'm thinking of like Wilson from Home Improvement or something like
Yeah,
that. Of just
yeah.
like, hey neighbor, how you doing? And
I wish it was that cool, but it's not.
yeah,
No,
Yeah.
Wilson was just a tall dude whose eyes could see over the fence and was best friends with his next door neighbor.
Yeah,
That's very
it's-
different from these spying people who like they might think of themselves as a Wilson, but they're actually just like I don't know, name a
invading
creepy
privacy.
white- Yeah, it just man, white people in suburbia are just crazy. They're a whole different breed of people.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I mean, I am intrigued to see because obviously Halloween is coming up. The neighbor, I live like right on like a real cul-de-sac. I live on a cove, so just a hole around, and I live.
That's-
isn't it cute?
It's
yeah.
not a cul-de-sac,
I
it's
live on a cove is probably
cove.
the whitest thing that has been said of
I
this
know.
entire podcast.
Like, there's no water anywhere around here. Well, it is that it's a dead end. Like, but so does just saying dead end on the sign. I don't. Whatever. But I live like kind of on the corner, and the family right at the peak of the cove. They have like 6 inflatables already. They put them up on October 1st. Just a dragon with LED eyes. I
nothing-
think
nothing is
Snoopy's out
sacred to these
front.
people.
No, but I want to. I hope they throw a Halloween party because I just want to be a general nuisance to the neighborhood. You know, everyone's got to have one house that they're like, boy, I wish they hadn't moved in. It's gonna be me.
Just egg the houses, TP.
Oh,
You know,
No, I'm just gonna roll up because it's all they got kids or whatever. I'm just gonna roll up with a Truly, be like, howdy neighbor, is this the party? Let's spike the punch bowl. Don't let your kids drink it, or do. I don't care. Do however you parents is how you parent.
yeah, whatever.
You could totally like 100% be that neighbor that they tell their kids don't pay any attention to them, but all the kids are going to be paying nothing but attention to you.
That's the hope, baby.
There
So
you go.
I'm waiting for Halloween to bust it out.
Jazz Foster, corrupting influence.
There you go.
You can be the house in the neighborhood that gives out the edibles instead of candy.
we
The one
talked.
that everybody warns
There
about.
it
Yeah,
is.
we talked about that on the Halloween episode.
It's gonna be me.
Even if you don't do it, spread that rumor around.
Yeah.
Like,
Someone,
get
someone's
going.
giving out drugs. That's crazy.
Just
How are your
put
kids?
just put little like marijuana stickers on all of the candy that you give out, just to trick people into thinking they're.
Snickers, Kit Kats, everything. Do it.
That's a good idea. I should be writing this down.
That was a fun just trip down weird bullshitting lane. Or sorry, weird bullshitting cove.
You gotta get
It
it
dumps
right.
back out.
Let's switch it up. Frank, let's talk about Venom 2 and just how bad this movie is. What were your thoughts as the only one of us like foolish enough to go actually see it? What did you think about Venom?
Yeah, it's not great. Like, and I definitely don't recommend and pretty much anybody see it unless like if you were just super interested in it and you caught it on like streaming or like cable or something, then maybe give it a watch. But definitely don't like go pay to see this. But it was before I even get into my thoughts. It was funny where we had a moment where I went with some friends and they had invited me out and I said yes, and then I kind of regretted it because then I had to go see the movie. And then when we were in the theater, we were talking about how one of our friends still hasn't seen Shang-Chi. And 3 of us out of the 4 of us were like, God damn it, we'd all just went and saw that with you instead. Like again, everybody's seen it except for him, and we all would have went and re-saw it instead of Venom 2. But it's just not great because it's like this quick 90-minute movie that's not like in any way offensive, but everything it does is just kind of bad, and the entire movie is also just really, really dumb. Like when it was happening, it was dumb. And when I've like talked about it and said some of the moments and things, just when you break it down and you just talk about it, it just sounds even stupider than it really was. Like it's just the whole thing was definitely really dumb. And I was surprised at how like it's 90 minutes and so it has this breakneck pace and then it does nothing. Then barely anything happens during like the entire movie and all the action is in the last like act.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like I figured it out where like it has like rom-com writing and like narrate and like a story they're trying to tell, but it has the pacing of an action movie. And so it kind of fucks up both. Like, but it's like there could have been something good there. They just didn't do it right.
Yeah, that's like I think both Cameron and I talked about that we've watched the like kind of funny in review recap of Venom 2 because we have no intention of actually watching the movie, and that's pretty much like that lines up with a lot of what they talk about is the idea and what I'd seen in some of the other reviews of like, yeah, it's a weird rom-com between Venom and Eddie Brock, and that's like clearly what they're going for, and it just doesn't work on like pretty much any level. Unlike I have seen a couple people out there being like that really worked for them as, but like it was almost as like because it's so different and you don't normally see that in these superhero movies that it's like a rom-com movie between like the guy and the alien parasite. I remember when when like Jazz jumped in the chat about potentially doing like an episode on Venom or whatever. You were Jazz was like, why is there a character that's an alien, like a cannibalistic alien symbiote kind of thing? It's like, man, the '90s were just weird.
And there's
That
more
wasn't
than
even
one.
the 90s, that was
There's
the
like
70s.
12.
That was late 70s.
like what is it like is that when Carnage like came, because
Oh,
like
for
I remember
Carnage,
Carnage
yeah.
being like Carnage and Venom being like really introduced in like the '90s era, and that was like that just being
So-
like
So the 90s was when they tried to put an anti-hero spin on Venom.
Hmm.
And to do that, they introduced Carnage as
as like
kind
a
of a-
villain that
Yeah.
Venom could
It had to
fight.
be worse than Venom. Sure,
yeah,
sure.
that was the idea. Because Venom's the only thing that Venom did that was like quote unquote villainous was that he was trying to kill Peter Parker. That's basically all he did that was considered quote unquote evil. He didn't go out of his way to be malicious or hurt other people. It was just, did he hurt people in the pursuit of Peter Parker? 100%, but that's it.
I'm gonna say though that arguably, if you are trying to kill somebody,
That does
Well,
make
Bill
you a
might be
villain.
the bad guy. Like
Yeah, no.
they-
Yeah, 100% the bad guy. 100% not a good person. Like not making that argument, but in the eyes of like comic books, like somebody who has a vendetta against somebody and then goes after them is different than somebody who is a
Yeah.
cannibalistic murderous alien.
no, I agree. I was the one to be like, we didn't need this, and then
No, nobody.
They made
We
it
didn't need
anyway.
the first Venom movie.
I mean Carnage the
unnecessary.
character. I'm sort of
Oh,
morally
Carnage?
opposed to
Carnage
taking
is-
Jeffrey Dahmer and putting an alien in him and trying to make him like, check this guy out. No.
That was the 90s.
Yeah.
That was the 90s. He had a
Nice.
video game tie-in and everything.
Yeah, no, I have the Super Nintendo game that is like Maximum Carnage or whatever, that is like
Yep.
Venom versus Carnage or Spider-Man versus Carnage or whatever.
It's
Like,
Spider-Man and Venom. One player is Spider-Man, the other player is Venom.
yeah, I have that. I could probably like pull that out and do a let's play of that game.
That sounds rad.
It's better than the movie, so I would definitely recommend that game
Yeah.
over the movie, if anything.
I mean,
Now,
it's
here's
like
the thing. Tell me if there is a scene where Venom, like, there's two songs that could have saved this, that I think could have really helped this movie out. I haven't seen it, but I assume they're not in it because otherwise people would be like, "Oh, this was a good part of it," because these songs would have been there. Either one, "Careless Whisper,"
Yeah, I don't think that's there. Yeah.
saxophone. Do, 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 do.
I know.
Well, I'm trying to think of one song that was in the movie, and I can't think of anything. So that's why
Okay,
I was
cool.
like, I don't think there's
Second
any
song,
songs in the
Every
movie.
time I
really.
think about you, I touch myself.
Oh, that's not in there at all. But that would have been good with Venom. Yeah.
Right? That's the thing.
Is-
If it'd been like you want to
I'm gonna look it
go
up.
all in on rom-com, you get either one of those songs. You can play up the comedic elements of the quote unquote romantic interest in this moment. This could be like Venom's trying to do a sexy time, and Eddie's just like, "You're an alien parasite. Don't do this."
well, like one
and
of
then,
them.
like-
I mean, it's not like romantic in like
I
like
understand,
yeah.
but
But
they could have gone that way, and it would have been funny. And people have been like, "There's this one scene in there that's totally worth seeing," but they don't do that, Trevor, and that's why it's a worse movie than it could have been.
I mean, sure. They put this in the trailers, and I'm curious, Frank, if it's in the actual movie. But like the sequence where like Venom is making breakfast or whatever, and
Yeah,
and
that's
it's
in the
done to
movie.
like the tomato. Let's call the whole thing off thing. That's actually in the. Oh God, yeah. That's
Yeah, and with the singing and everything, like literally that whole
no.
scene is in there. But it's also like not very funny. Like it's every time they
No.
try to do a lot of the comedy that's meant to be funny, it's not funny. And then a lot of the parts they didn't mean to be funny are very funny.
Mhm.
And like but that's why it's like they could have had a cool rom-com sort of thing, but it's like they tried to do that and action movie, and they just kind of failed at both. Like I hate the part where like it's not a spoiler because especially if you've seen a movie before, but it's like we're on the outs and we got to get back together again to like finish the movie. And I'm just like, but even that is like super quick and really 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 dumb. And it leads to a part where I will spoil where I really thought Venom was gonna rap. Like they said this in the kind of funny
Yeah.
reaction too, but he grabs the microphone from somebody and gets on stage, and I swear to God, I thought, and I was like, oh no, this movie's even worse than I thought it was. And he ends up just giving like a speech, which is really dumb. But that's when I'm like, they had 90 minutes and they don't do a lot with it, and they were filling for time. Like they really were just filling for time in the 90 minutes, and I'm
Should
like,
have just gone with the
but I
rap.
could
Even
see.
if it's bad, even if it's terrible, they still could have gone for it.
I mean, what do people remember of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2? The Vanilla Ice
Exactly.
rap.
And
Who's
if
that
they had
movie?
something, if they had something like that, that could have even been like fun or weird. I definitely thought that's where they were going with it, and then they didn't. And they had Eminem on the soundtrack, so they could have like tried to do something there, but they didn't.
It could have been
Um,
an 8 Mile parody moment.
Well, they had Eminem on the soundtrack of the first one too.
Yeah.
Like he's like he is the Linkin Park of of this series compared to like Transformers or something, where it's just there's always an Eminem song on these Venom movies, I guess.
And that song doesn't really fit the vibe of the movie at all. Like that is totally one they just made a
Well, they
song
did the
and then they
last
put it in
one.
this movie. Like it just doesn't. It cuts to that for the credits and everything, and it's totally completely different. It doesn't fit the movie at all. Like it's just like the only thing that good thing I kind of did have to say about it is one of the big. I never saw the first one, but one of the biggest critiques I heard about is that it was really hard to like see what was happening, especially like the end fight with Venom and Riot. Like it was just like it was dark at night and it was just a lot of colors like blurring together.
Yeah, it was
Have you
basically
seen-
Yeah.
a black blob versus another black blob at
Have you
night.
seen the green,
Yeah.
the green screen version of it when they're doing the fight?
Yeah, they're like this kind of
Yeah,
dumb.
where they're like pushing at
yeah,
each other and like move like interpretive dancing around each other. Yeah,
yeah,
it's awful. It's like
yeah. Oh, it's terrible.
top to
Yeah.
bottom, this production, like the production of this, the last film and this film, have just been god awful. And I feel so bad for Tom Hardy because he's a really great actor and he deserves better.
I don't
than anything
I
in
don't
this
feel
movie.
bad for him at all, especially because he's like an executive producer or producer on this one.
Mm.
So
fuck him.
he's gonna make
gosh.
millions of dollars off of these
Yeah,
movies.
no.
Like the
Also,
last movie made $1 billion. This one's
Yeah, the last
this
movie
one's
made $1
gonna do
billion.
fine, and he's gonna
This
get
one is the
a
number one
shit ton of
movie
money from it.
of the pandemic.
Which is sad.
So far,
I think
yeah,
that's so bad. Yeah,
Which
like
is like, how is this one beating Black? Like, it's so bad.
Well, it's beating
so
Black Widow
bad.
because Black Widow was also on Disney Plus, whereas this was
Yep.
theaters only.
Yep.
But yeah,
I
The
think-
number one movie in the world should be Shang-Chi.
The farther we get into the pandemic, because we're still not at the other side of it, the more people are just like, it's over, it's fine, we can do whatever. So movie sales are going to keep going up.
Yeah.
I really think Carnage is only at the top right now by virtue of being the latest. And the next big one that comes out will top Carnage because we're just up on the incline.
God, I hope so because Venom was like not like everybody was like, yeah, Venom's really terrible, but it still made $1 billion.
Yeah.
I did.
And it's like,
I saw
how?
Venom in theaters.
Yeah, how? Why? And the answer is because people be horny.
I mean, it
I
was not.
support horny on Maine, so live your
I
best life.
I did
I
it
made-
just
I
to
made
see
horny
how
on
Main,
bad it
maybe
was.
Not horny on Main Street.
I made a pretty bad Venom joke at the time. Couldn't think of a good one for Carnage as a follow-up, but I remember people being upset with me. So,
Can you say that joke? Do you remember it?
it was a tweet. It was about his mouth. You can fill in the blanks.
I'm with it.
Horny on Maine, yeah.
Fair
Yeah.
enough.
100%. I
Yeah,
respect that.
I am not horny for Venom. I went and saw the first Venom in theaters just to see how bad it was, and I was, not disappointed. And this one, I basically was like, I don't even want to see how bad this one is. I know it's going to be bad. Like, there's no way that changed, and there's no way that like them having an extra year because the pandemic made it a better movie. So yeah, I have zero interest in seeing that. So that's why I had no problem like going and just watching the kind of funny like they'll recap it and I'll hear exactly how terrible it is from them.
Sure.
So-
I have too much respect for Woody Harrelson to do that to him.
Yeah, because him and Tom Hardy are both like good actors, but they are 100% just phoning it in. Like they're just here for the check. And then Tom Hardy, like I can see what scenes they filmed first because he goes really hard on the accent and then he loses it in other scenes. and just doesn't have it at all, and he's just speaking like Tom Hardy, and I'm like, man, I can really see the filming order when he just like gave up on these, I guess.
I
Like,
mean, even that though, that's another like he has a story by credit on this. Like he was very involved in this. He was not phoning this in at all. Like he
then that's
Yeah,
sad because
here's
like
the thing.
I
He
felt
phoned
like
it
he
in,
was good.
and he knew that. Here's the thing. He probably knows this is a cash grab. It's one of those few moments in life where you're gonna get one of these moments. One of these privileged moments where you can just like rake in a shit ton of money from a company that's putting out this, artistically bankrupt film. And so, he's doing the pragmatic thing that, white British men have been doing for centuries, and he's just taking advantage of it.
I mean
Say
he,
Michael Caine in Jaws 3 or Jaws 2 or
yeah.
Jaws 4, whatever.
I mean, yeah, he's gonna do this, and this funds every other art house movie he wants to ever make.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Yep.
This
So,
is the price that
like
he.
that.
There's other projects that other people have done. Michael Caine and Jaws, but there's a lot of other famous actors that they do this.
Glenn
and
Close talked about doing the first Guardians of the Galaxy just so she could go and do like the next few like indie movies she wanted to do.
Yep, it funds it. They're able to executive produce these projects they really are passionate about, and I'm okay with that. Doesn't mean I'm gonna see them.
Yeah.
But, yeah, and so one of my last points with it was just that like they the ending scene of this, and especially a lot of the action, everything is really visible, and like you can definitely clearly tell what is happening at all times. So I credit where credit's due. I just wanted to give them that like they at least heard that from the first movie and like seemed like they specifically course corrected, because even the ending fight, I won't ruin it, but it's like really well lit, and it's not even like they lit it well to film it. It's like they're fighting in an area that specifically has lights that are visual and you can see. So that like these giant overhead lights, like I felt like somebody really took the lighting thing literal. But I was like, yeah, credit where credit's due. They heard a complaint and they tried to fix it,
What's the
and then they just kind of they. It was pretty good. Like, there's not a lot of action, and the action that's there is fine. It's not great or it's not bad. Like the movie, I think overall could have been worse. So like the things they did okay. I'm like, oh, that's all right. But like because it's the fight between him and Carnage is pretty good, and it's just like it's really quick, and that's like the only fight scene in the entire movie. There's like barely any action in the whole movie, and because CGI is expensive, kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's Venom 2. And then like I mean, technically, a spoiler, but it's also like the worst kept secret because everybody's been tweeting about it. The fact that like, yeah, it seems to be they're linking this into the MCU at this point, and they're gonna seemingly have this Venom crossover with at least Tom Holland's Spider-Man character. So
Because that's
Kevin Feige, full of grace.
That's the post credits, and I'll just tell everybody just go watch that, and that's better than everything in the movie. And even then, it's not great. It's just like that was the biggest like excitement for me out of the movie.
Yeah, it's like I mean, again, full spoilers on that, but it's basically just the end of Spider-Man: Far From Home, right? Where it's like J. Jonah Jameson admitting here's who Spider-Man is, and like, just they're seeing it in the Sony universe. So, okay.
And like on the one hand, like that was incredibly exciting in the moment, like in the theater. I remember feeling that and being like, "Oh, that's amazing! I can't believe they did that. That's so wild." But then when I thought about it later, I'm like, "Fuck, that means that this is the version of Venom in the MCU, and I hate this version of Venom." Like, I hope that the symbiote leaves this Eddie Brock and goes to someone else, and this Eddie Brock just dies or goes away. Like, I don't mind if Tom Hardy is still the Venom like voice in character, because he's fine as Venom. Like, Eddie Brock sucks though, and like their Eddie Brock specifically sucks and is really dumb, and I really just hate him as like a character. But that's why I was like Venom is the alien symbiote is smarter than the human man that he is inside of. Like.
And at least in the first movie, they were both dumb as fuck. So not
Venom
great.
is like a prodigy in this movie. Like, he does all of Eddie's journalistic work and like completely solves a murder and does all this stuff that like. And Eddie Brock the entire time is like, "What are you doing? I don't understand. What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Oh my god!" Like and that's why Venom partially wants to leave, because he's like, "This guy's incompetent. I could do so much better on my own." And I'm like, "Yeah, you could, Venom. Like,
go find Topher Grace. He's been doing some more interesting things after Spider-Man 3. Go be with that Eddie Brock again. Yeah.
Or Topher Grace.
Yeah. And then my final thought is just they also say Carnage or Let There Be Carnage or some kind. They say it way too goddamn much. Like, it happens 5 or 6 times in the whole movie, and it was like it's like they wrote it a couple times and were like, "We'll use one," and then they left it all in.
I haven't watched Cinema Sins in like many years because I'm just like kind of over their like overly negative approach to like film criticism or whatever. But I remember like they would always do the ding for any time they say like the title of the movie or whatever. So maybe it was just trying to make the Cinema Sins people mad. Maybe that's what maybe that's all Venom Let There Be Carnage is. It's just like, hey, this is just a multi-million-dollar troll on the Cinema Sins guys.
That's how it feels almost, because Carnage is the character's name, but they only say that a couple times. What I'm talking about is a totally different circumstance where they're just referring to carnage, like the word of like there's going to be a ton of carnage out there,
Yeah.
and like let there be carnage and all that. And I'm like, why stop saying that?
Yeah.
Like,
It's not a common word, like generally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even if it's something is going to be like a massacre, rarely do you hear carnage. Like,
Yeah. Well, that's Venom Let There Be Carnage for you. So real quick, I just want to again, I'll kind of keep this spoiler free, but Ted Lasso season 2 wrapped up this week, and it's been really fun like watching it. Because obviously I came to Ted Lasso very late, basically like in the lead up to season 2. I watched all of season 1 basically like a month or two before season 2 came out, and then I've been watching season 2 as it came out. And so it's been fun like getting to watch the current season while the first season is getting all these accolades and like Emmy Award wins and stuff like that, and seeing like the Ted Lasso people go out and do press for season 2 has been fun, and I've just been like diving in all in on that. And I really like kind of the overarching story of season 2. Obviously, they had a very kind of like deliberate, like antagonistic relationship set up in season 1, and season 2 is a lot more subtle about that. And season 2 ends up actually also being a lot more like about dealing with personal struggles and dealing with like mental health and the like inner lives of all these characters that we've gotten to know over the course of the first season, and just kind of digging deeper into those characters. Getting to see a lot of those characters in like happy and healthy relationships is just delightful. In particular, I want to give a shout out to the Christmas episode that like aired in August or whatever, is going to be like a Christmas time staple that I'm just going to like throw on when I want like a good mood, because it has like 3 little subplots throughout there, and all 3 of them are just so unbelievably heartwarming and lovely that I was just like, yes, like I want this. This is like, this will replace, hey, now I don't have to watch It's a Wonderful Life for like 2.5 hours every Christmas. I can just watch this 45 minutes of Ted Lasso and get all the warm fuzzies and feels, and just enjoy the hell out of that. But then, yeah, just the character arcs throughout the course of the season are all, I think, really strong. In particular, I think Ted himself has a really great arc that also recontextualizes some of like my favorite elements of the first season. And then for those that have been watching, of course, Nate Shelley kind of also has a very, significant arc over the course of the season that really comes to a head in the finale. And just phenomenal performances from all of them. The fact that the actors who play Roy and Rebecca won like the supporting actor Emmys this year, I almost want them to like recuse themselves from next year so that they can like let other performers on the show kind of take the spotlight. But yeah, it was just phenomenal work. And just there was like one thing going into the finale that I was really hoping they wouldn't like drop the ball on, and that was like Ted confronting that he's had some mental health issues and like not shying away from it and not hiding it. And again, without getting into spoilers, like they did what I wanted them to do. Like he like owns it, and he like, it seems like that's going to be a thing that he's willing to openly talk about moving forward. And I really liked just kind of that the ultimate approach that they have on that. I know, Cameron, you've been watching season 2, but I'm pretty sure you're only partway through.
I have not gotten back to season 2 yet.
Okay.
Well, we talked about it before we started. I've been like the biggest reason why I'm hesitant to watch anything on my PS5 is because of like the headphone situation. Like these headphones I use for my PC, I just use them for that because of the whole sound situation with the PS5 and the changing of like the optical stuff and whatnot. It's made it a bit more difficult to try to like figure that out, and it's just been easier just to use a cheap pair of headphones.
Mm-hmm.
But like I like having like full surround sound and whatnot. So, but you know, we talked about it a little bit, and I think Ted Lasso is exactly what I need right now. So, I'll probably be hopping into that.
Yeah, I definitely hope you check it out. Because yeah, I took advantage of the like PlayStation 5. Like, hey, here's 6 months of Apple TV Plus, and like
I gotta use it.
having
I'm
it
not
for
using it for anything else.
having it for Ted Lasso alone was worth it. But I also got Schmigadoon out of that, and that was a fun
Yeah.
6 weeks that like was just straight up my alley. One that I want to circle back around to is Coda, which is a movie that came out recently. It centers around a deaf family, and like the
Oh,
the
yeah.
one daughter in the family can hear and is an aspiring singer. And it's kind of like the conflict. Marley Matlin is in it, and she's great
Oh,
in pretty
geez.
much everything she does. So like I remember seeing a lot of ads for that, and just want to now circle back and check that out as well. But yeah, just Ted Lasso, real good. I like like it reached that point that like seemingly every series does in the Twitter age now of like everybody's like really high on it, and then like it becomes cool to hate it now. And I saw a lot of that going around, especially on the second season of like, oh, now more people are getting into it, and people don't like this season. They don't think there's like a a clear cut villain this season. I'm like, well, A, you clearly were wrong on that front, but B, also like the fact that the villain was more nebulous and was more anxiety and our own like struggling with our own personal demons and stuff, I think was just like it wasn't spoon fed to people, so they started criticizing it because of that. So yeah, but I think I like season 2 better than season 1 when all is said and done. And I look forward to like I'm sad that they've kind of come out before and said that they're only planning on this being a 3-season show. Because I don't think I want it to end in another 12 episodes. But if that's the story they want to tell, I, of course, fully respect that. Frank, what were you going to say?
Do you guys know if that deal is still going on to get
I
the
think
Apple
so.
Plus with your PlayStation Plus? Because I thought about picking it up and I should have, because now I definitely want to check out Ted Lasso. I wanted to check it out with season 1, but what you're saying about season 2 and what I've heard from other people definitely has me like more sold.
I
Yeah, I
think
think
so.
if
I think
you
it's just
go-
download
yeah.
on your PlayStation 5, because it's not even a PlayStation. Well, it might be a PlayStation Plus benefit, but it's like on your PlayStation 5, download the Apple TV app, and it should basically be like, hey, do you want to try 6 months for free? I think the deal's still going on, but that'd definitely be something to check out.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out tonight and see, because I wanted to check it out before, but especially like I said, with everything about season 2 sounds more interesting. Like I love the idea of it being like a super fun, wholesome show, and then I like the idea where then it can even get a little bit real and try to tell some interesting stories there.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I mean, like even season 1, like as the obviously the like the front facing idea of Ted is like he's just this super positive, like the opposite of like toxic masculinity kind of guy. But like even from like episode 1, they introduced that he's dealing with his own struggles. He took this job halfway across the world, kind of getting away from marriage troubles, and a lot of his personal
Yeah.
struggles in that first season are, his kind of marriage is falling apart and stuff, and how he's coping with that or not coping with it as it may be. And season 2 kind of continues along that, and it is like it's the idea of like, hey, maybe it's not the healthiest mental health issue trying to put in all of that like super positive energy into the world while stuff isn't really that positive at home, and
Yeah.
the struggles that Ted is dealing with on that front.
Ted's biggest flaw as a character, and this is just somebody who's seen season 1, is that he's all about the care for others and doing things for other people, and like really putting himself out there as being a positive person and being a positive force in the world. But he doesn't take the time to do that for himself.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
too real.
Like, yeah,
Mhm.
it is very like, and they are very upfront about that. Episode 1 of season 1, like the struggles that he is going through, and the thing is, because the show's just full of so many good story beats, you slowly start to see how that's like that there is a very dark, like not dark, but like a very deep cavern where self-care should be going for Ted that has just been empty for a very long time.
Mm-hmm. That's like one of the great elements of season 2 is it introduces a like team psychiatrist for the soccer team for AFC Richmond, and like early on in the season there's very much a like Ted is being combative towards that because of his personal like thoughts and ideas on psychiatry and mental health that he, you know, fortunately I think opens up to over the course of the season. But it's a lot of like he's fighting it, but he's fighting it in the Ted way where he's like just being super positive and being like I don't need it. But then like he starts to like really aggressively confront it. And
I'm excited to get into it
and
now.
yeah,
Oh,
it's
good.
his arc in just that in relationship to that character is one of my favorite over the course of the second season. And so yeah,
Did they bring the journalist to be the psychiatrist now?
no. Trent Krim does have some really great stuff though in season 2 as well. Trent Krim, the
is
Independent,
the
and yeah,
Trent Krim, the Independent.
Yeah,
such a good character.
He
he's only in a few episodes, like very few episodes and very few scenes, but he is by far like one of my favorite television characters of all time.
Mm-hmm.
He just has the most epic mane of hair, and he talks like the most prim and proper British that you could imagine, and he's you know the Independent.
Yeah,
like even though like Ted even says like I know you, man, like you don't have to say where you're from every time, but he says it to everything.
Yeah,
that's the best. He's so good.
Trent Krim, the Independent. He that continues even in he has a couple moments in particular in like the last couple episodes that I don't want to spoil, but like even via text he'll like introduce himself as Trent Krim in one line and then the Independent in the next. Yeah, he's a great character, and I look forward to seeing where he goes in season 3 as well, because he gets some significant change ups there at the end of the season 2. But yeah, like just lots of great stuff, and we get like glimpses at a lot more of like the character's personal. I mean, there's like an entire episode in season 2 that's pretty much just focused on Coach Beard, who's like this otherwise very like enigmatic character who just has like a banger of a one-liner every episode, and
so good.
Having an entire episode focused on him and like the surreal life that he leads when he's like away from the life. Yeah, it's a ton of fun.
He brings a love interest at one point in season 1.
Yeah,
and how they met, how they know each other, and like how that relationship develops over that episode.
Oh, it continues. Like their relationship has
100%.
Continued to just like go nuts in season 2.
I'm very, very excited to like, because at the end of season 1, that whole thing where it's so good. He's devastatingly like impactful with his like one-liners, just as like nonchalant, just like he'll just be standing there and then all of a sudden he'll just say something that's extremely poignant and like very important to like the development of something or create an idea in Ted's head. And it's like why, and it's funny because like he is the one that has like studied up on soccer.
Yeah,
because the whole premise is these are football coaches going to coach football from the Midwest to England, and it's the best. And also Ted's opinion on tea, like basic British tea, is great. It's so good. Like the show is so good. I can't suggest enough. I'm really excited to get back into it now. Okay, cool.
I mean, honestly, like my favorite thing I've ever heard in relation to Ted Lasso is admittedly when you and I hung out not too long ago, Cameron, and you were like, you have a very Roy Kent vibe to you.
Oh yeah, no, you 100% do. Yeah, I said that.
Because Roy Kent obviously is a very incredibly gruff character, but you know, of course, has a heart of gold. And he's the actor who won the Emmy recently. I forget the actor's name. But it's also like both him and Coach Beard are also writers on the show, and I think that's an element of like what makes like. He talks, Brent Goldstein, I think, is the one who plays Roy Kent. And he talks about, like, in season 1, like, writing and breaking the story and stuff before they cast these characters. He he's told stories on some of the interview shows about how basically like he realized he was writing it for himself, and so he kind of like stealthily submitted an audition, uh, just like without telling anybody that he was going to do that, and they were like, yeah, of course this is you. It's like, of course we're going to cast you in this. And so it's great that like he talks about like he tries not to pitch too many things in the room for Roy because he doesn't want to like come across being like that egotistical or whatever. But then he will also get very defensive of like Roy wouldn't fucking say that. And so it like
Awesome.
I just think they have a really strong sense of identity around these characters. And I love just seeing kind of the slow and subtle arc that we get across the season for some of them. Even
Mark
Jamie
Morris
Tart,
has
I
done
think,
it
has a
again.
lot of great stuff in this season, even though he's in a significantly smaller role this season around than he was in the first season. But like the moments that he does get are really strong. Sam Obisanya also gets a lot of like growth in this season. That's a ton of fun. So yeah, shout out to Ted Lasso season 2. Go check it out if you have Apple TV Plus. And
If not, go check it out anyway in
Yeah.
a way that you find is good, because fuck Apple also.
Sure.
right.
So yeah, let us wrap it up then with just kind of looking back. This is episode 100. We've come a long way in a couple years. So in some ways, and then in other ways, like we're just we've taken some steps back too. So Cam, you kind of I think brought this up. Anything in particular you want to kind of jump off from?
Yeah, like I've been actually thinking about it a lot in the last couple of weeks, like how, because you and I, like you, I all but asked you to invite me,
Mm-hmm.
at a bar. It was at an Alamo in Chandler.
Yep. We were seeing
Right
Joker.
before we saw Joker.
Yeah. Yep.
And I remember kind of the idea and pitch being like, because I had just sunsetted KG and Naughty Gamers about like a month and a half earlier. I actually was looking it up because I'm like, what was our 100th? Because we made it to 150 episodes, not including the 0.5s and spoiler casts and stuff that we considered aside from it. But like over 300 podcasts, and like I sunset that because I was working a 4-hour commute at the time, 2 hours both ways, if not longer because of traffic coming home. It was just like a really rough time, and I was just kind of like done because I had been doing it for such a long time, and I was starting to phone it in really bad, and I decided to sunset it. Sunset that project, and it was a good decision. I think it ended on like a really strong note because of it. But I was walking away from podcasting, and I was like, well, I don't really want to just like jump in and have like show ideas because I don't really have anything for that nerdy site. I just kind of want, like, I know this is going to be a really cool and important thing for me, and I just want to be a part of it, and I want to help out people as best I can. So, I was kind of, the idea was I would come in as kind of like a rotating chair, like be there to like, oh, so and so can't make it, so Cameron's going to fill in for that, and just kind of either do more production stuff, do more producing, and like writing and doing some game editorial stuff. And that was like the original pitch to kind of like for me to come on, and it's been amazing in these 100 episodes the last 2 years to see how much that has changed. I do not think that we would be the same group that we are right now if the pandemic hadn't hit us.
Mm-hmm.
Because the pandemic hit us, we had the departures that happened, and then like everything kind of all hit us at once, like between the pandemic and individuals.
It was definitely a rocky few months there in
Yeah.
like March through June of 2020.
Yeah, March through June of 2020 was a hard time, and I know that there was a lot of struggle and stress for a lot of us, and that kind of like really, I definitely without a doubt impacted our, whatever production ideas we had kind of went out the window for a lot of stuff. But something I will say is I don't think I would have gotten through that with another group of people, because I've talked about it briefly, but I was looking at really not just sunsetting my podcasting career, but like ending it firmly, and also in games in general. Um, at the time it was definitely a much more heightened emotional state, but uh, Trevor told me, you told me you understood and that you'd support me, and it just kind of hit me. And I had like, because I was doing these long ass commutes, I had burned through so many podcasts, I had burned through so many songs, soundtracks, and finally I had like started scraping like through like my musical background and like my stage and performance background stuff, and then I got through all the stuff that I had been a part of and done, and I started was just digging through musical stuff. And um, there's a production called Man of La Mancha. It's somewhat famous, but it has this song in it that for some reason has just like stuck to my ribs like nothing else, in a way that it seems to pop up in a really important times. And one of those times was when I was talking to Trevor. And the song is about the impossible dream, which is just the idea that like you can't, like, this is something impossible to obtain, but you're there to do it anyway. And I thought about my career in podcasting and what I've been doing, how many years it had been since I left Kind of Funny Live 1 and decided I wanted to podcast, and like that massive change in my life. And I realized that, I like, who knows what the future holds, but I do know that if I want to do it, like, the people here are the people that I really want to see and make something with. And that might change. People might leave, people might join. We might have these ebbs and flows, but I really do believe that at its core, that nerdy site is um, like a place that deserves its space. And I want to help make that space better as much as I can. And I think that as things get, as things change in the future, I look back and I look at where we are. We were uh, a bigger group, but we were also a lot more aggressive. And because of that, I think we made like, I know I made like production decisions that I think were not a mistake, but definitely were like more than I definitely could have handled. And like that aggressiveness, I think has tempered into a lot of wisdom. And I think we're a lot smarter, a lot wiser. We're a lot more considerate, especially Trevor. Trevor as our leader, I think, has been really, really like, I guess leveled up is the right way to put it, but leveled up as a leader, as a whether it's getting things together for podcasts or let's plays and really kind of being like the spearhead and our leader, but also like just being there as like just a really great friend. And keeping this group together has been like a struggle without a doubt. I have no doubt about that, but I think it's been worth it, and I'm happy to have been a part of it. I'm happy to have gotten to know Frank and Jazz and Logan a lot better. um, and I don't regret anything that's happened. I don't regret where we're at now. I am happy with who we are as a group, and I really am excited for the future and the next 100 episodes and what that time means and how we've progressed as a podcast and everything else. So, that being said, thank you so much for letting me ask you to invite me to join us and be a part of this amazing journey. And yeah, I thought about 100 episodes, and 100 episodes was such a more definitive milestone with my last podcast because of what everything entailed, and the fact that like I was the one leading it and pretty much the sole effort behind it, um, which is why nobody's ever heard of it. Uh, um, I found that I don't know why I found that very funny in the moment.
I mean,
But
I remember having conversations with you about like the fact that like you never promoted it, like
nope.
on like you had the Naughty Gamers, the KGN like Twitter account, but like if people didn't follow that, like because people followed you because they'd met you at events and stuff like that, but
Yeah,
you weren't sharing out that you did this podcast from your personal Twitter, like you were only sharing it from the KGN Twitter,
I
save
never
like
wanted to.
occasionally or whatever.
I never wanted to annoy people or bother people because I felt like I
You
so
you
first
wanted
off,
plausible deniability. You could be like, that's not
oh
me. I
yeah,
don't know
yeah.
that guy.
When you name your company Naughty Gamers, KNOTTY, that's to spell it out for people who are like, why did you name yourself after like a pervy idea? The like it was
It
a there's a
wasn't a pervy
whole
idea. It was just supposed to make you think it was a pervy idea.
yeah, it was a double
Yeah.
entendre. The whole like that whole like I don't regret that journey I took with KGN and Naughty Gamers at all. I think I would have been a lot more successful if I had been invited to like join a more like another group of people. But I also don't think I would have grown as much as I did when I ran my own thing, and I don't think that I would have been able to bring what I had learned and implemented it here, as well as I have, and certainly I could still do more. I have no doubt about that. But uh, like what we have going forward in the future is something I'm very excited about. Not because we have anything concrete that we have lined out or anything, but just because I don't know if there's another group of people anybody would rather be doing this with, because I certainly don't. Now I say that, but if Kind of Funny comes knocking on my door, y'all fuckers are out of here. I'm
Peace.
done. I'm out.
Yeah, no, I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
Frank and Jazz in particular, because obviously, like Jazz, obviously, we didn't have you on a lot this last year and change, and then Frank, you also were out for quite a bit from the podcast because you had some computer stuff and work in general was just kind of keeping you crazy busy. So I guess I'm curious your guys' perspectives in not only like the last year, but just kind of as of that nerdy kind of as a whole, because I would say you were both probably much more involved in the early days, and then there was kind of like a dry spell. We got Frank back on for like the summer of Star Wars, and that was really kind of what started getting him back in the flow of things. But Jazz, and Jazz also, I'm curious because you, I think, more than any of us have been interested in doing like the writing side of things, and then we just like for like as we kind of like abandoned almost the writing side of the site, that there just hasn't really been much movement there. But I also want to just jump out and say like I love your writing anytime you have something to like submit. And
Yes.
and one of the things that I like that to what you brought up, Cameron, like one of my goals with that nerdy was always like I want this to be like a vessel that people can use for whatever kind of their creative outlets are, be that writing, be that a podcast, be it a video or whatever. And I'm happy to weigh in on that and provide feedback on stuff, but I'm largely a hands-off kind of manager, so like I'm not going to be pressing people for like ideas or whatever. And that's like, we talk about that conversational podcast as like an idea, and it was an idea people wanted to bring to the table. I was like, all right, well, like I'll do all the like admin to get that set up, but I'm not gonna be there beating the drum every week to be like, hey, is anybody doing this podcast? I tried that early on of like, hey, we haven't done one of these in a while. Is anybody gonna jump on this? And it was, everybody else kind of get overwhelmed with life. So I don't, again, fault that for what it was, but there are definitely some learning kind of things on that side as well that we're like currently evaluating, and we'll be kind of probably changing some things up here as we dive into going into year 3. But Frank and Jazz as like kind of, I'm curious your perspective. So Jazz, let's throw it to you first. Kind of what has the first couple years of that nerdy been for you in that regard?
I mean, I've had a great time. I think Cameron was dead on. Like the pandemic really blew some stuff apart. I know Frank and Logan and I had a bunch of ideas. Like we were all in Austin, easy thing to do. We can get together and do live streams and let's plays, and we wanted to do like a once a month, like at a bar, like a casual chat, and we wanted to learn how to cook together. Like there was a lot of stuff that we were working on, and it just kind of never got anywhere because as we started thinking about it, no one got to leave their house. Still love to do a lot of that, but if we're ever allowed to leave our houses. But I've always been able to come back to that nerdy site, and that's been really nice. Obviously, I've had a rough time the last year and a half, and I haven't been too shy about it. And working brunch didn't help because it was not a good job, but also the hours were rough. And so anytime you guys were like putting out the call to record, I was probably asleep. Because I just had to get up so early and I would crash so soon. But I always wanted to come back, and it was always nice that the door was open. And I'm proud of the stuff that I have put out.
We always got to shout you out that your NHL mascots list is by far our most popular thing ever on the website. So
yeah,
and our most controversial. Some people did not like your rankings.
Like the 2 or 3 people that commented or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Get over yourself. Your mascot's ugly. I mean, I'm proud of what I put out. I've had some. I had put out that I worked on. I had like kind of in my own brain for years that I finally got onto the page. And even if no one ever reads it, I'm proud that I finished it and that it had a home. We haven't done as much with writing, and for sure I was definitely the one that was going to spearhead that. And I fell off it, but you know, I'm gonna try to bring it back now that I'm in a better spot. No promises, because I'm not great with promises, but we're gonna do our best. I don't know. I'm definitely proud of what we've all put out, not just myself, and the fact that it stayed consistent and it kept getting done even when it was a weird time. And yeah, I mean, I've always had a good time. I don't know. I think that's for me what it comes back to. Like, that Nerdy Sites never felt like a chore or an obligation. It felt like something that I got to be a part of, for every podcast and for everything I wrote and thing we've done, and that's been really cool.
I always and we definitely talk about it enough, but I always appreciate just your perspective in general amongst the rest of kind of even back when we still had Ben and Chloe and Christian, because you were the one probably most outside of the spheres that like all of us kind of like met each other in. Obviously, we know you and knew you through like Irrational Passions and Alex O'Neill, and many of us got to spend an extra life or two. No, I guess just the one with you. The other one that you planned and then couldn't end up making, and you did not miss anything. Or you missed Cameron just sick for an entire 3-day weekend or whatever.
Worst food poisoning I've ever had in my entire life.
You know,
And
I
you
did
played a
miss
lot of
that,
Switch too.
but Logan came home with it, so I didn't really miss it.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like your perspective on just a ton of things has always been like, I think, fascinating to me, and you were admittedly one that I hadn't thought to reach out to, but like you kind of, I think, went to Logan saying like, hey, I'm kind of interested in this, and Logan brought it to me. I was like, I would love to have Jazz on board, and especially because at the time it was very much like you wanted to do a lot on the writing side, and I was like, I don't have much in the plans for writing, so yeah, absolutely, like I would love to have somebody else to kind of like come in and put stuff up on the site on that front. So yeah, like just your perspective, and again, like even the perspective that you've brought to things, be it your writing on kind of like speakeasies and stuff in the Austin scene, or your piece on Katamari Damacy, which is a game I've never been able to like just connect with, but like you have such a deep love for it, I think is incredibly telling. And then yeah, just the fact that you would have the idea to do an NHL mascots thing that, you know, absolutely touches on the SEO that everybody's apparently looking for with NHL mascots.
I mean, who knew?
Yeah.
I don't think people talk about NHL mascots enough. That's why it's up there.
Yeah.
It's just me.
But even apart from that, like I love, you know, the couple times where it's been like you, me, and Cameron on a podcast, and you guys will just go completely down the rabbit hole of hockey or tabletop stuff, and you guys will talk about kind of like the Dungeons and Dragons sessions that you've played. In particular, like just on that topic itself, having played Life is Strange, True Colors, and now playing through Life is Strange Before the Storm, both of which have like a character that is incredibly into tabletop stuff. Like I'm almost like I'm getting the urge to be like, maybe I should like reach out to Cam and Jazz and be like, hey, let's do like a tabletop something.
It's only taken so many years. But
This was the con the whole time.
Yeah, and a pandemic.
that nerdy site, the pandemic, everything was staged.
Yeah,
Trevor,
the entire
Yeah.
the 600,000 Americans have died in this coronavirus pandemic just so Trevor would become so devoid of human contact.
That's not a great joke. I admit it.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Casualties in every war.
Exactly. But no, like, I mean, there is a very, like, real aspect of, like, oh, like, because I mean, just the idea of tabletop in general is, like, a perfect, like, it's something I should absolutely be all in on, given my background in, like, acting and like, loving, creating characters and stuff like that, and, video games, of course. Yeah, as I kind of get more, like, tabletop adjacent, I'm like, oh yeah, this could be really fun. So maybe we'll do something like that. And
Sweet.
I kind of even almost don't want it to be content. I just kind of want to hang out with you guys and just, like, let's hop on a Discord call and do a game or something like that. Not everything we do needs to be recorded. Like, I don't.
Trevor, Frank's no slouch either.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I'm referring to everybody on the call, really, on this one.
I know on the previous podcast, Jazz and I have definitely, like, gone down the rabbit hole on, like, old tabletop games that we played, but like, yeah, actually, like, you are talking to the three people at that nerdy site who have a shit ton of tabletop experience.
Yeah. So maybe we'll just do that and just have some fun doing that.
I'm in. We can wrangle Logan into it. I'll sit him down once a week.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So Frank, kind of what's your take been on these first couple years?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with a lot of with the sentiments that have already been said, I think, but it's definitely been fun, and I've been having a great time, and I've like having an outlet for just kind of my thoughts and content that I've wanted to make. And of course, with everything that's happened, like, there's so much more I've wanted to make or had, like, the ideas for and wanted to do, but especially between either, like, the inability to do certain things or even just having, like, the time and the energy. And before I was even like, oh, it's the time. And then once I was stuck inside all the time, I was like, oh, and it's the energy.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, and it's like the mental energy to try to, like, make content and be in, like, a good mood. And that's my biggest thing is I wish I'm proud of everything we've made and I've had so much fun with it, but I've just still been wanting to make so much more. And I still have, like, this notepad full of ideas of stuff I want to do. And there's just seemingly, like, an endless stuff, but it's always sometimes so hard to just jump in and get to making content, and because it's even if I can, like, get there and get in it, you want to make that content where you're, like, up and excited and happy. I don't want to be like, hey guys, what's up, it's me again.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like that's just one of my biggest things. That's what I've been excited about more lately with, like, certain things where like I left one of my job that I was most recently at. That was definitely, like, a huge time sink and was just kind of, like, mentally super draining on me. And so that's why I've been even more back and just kind of even in better shape to make content. And there's still a lot of stuff I'm excited about. I even recorded a video. I did a vinyl unboxing. I just haven't edited it yet. It's been, like, 2 weeks. So that's when I'm like, I need to sit down and do it. And it was unfortunate too, because it's like Trevor said, my computer just, like, died. It just killed itself finally. And it was my nice, like, gaming desktop that I could edit on and do stuff. And it just slowly kind of was performing worse. And then it killed itself. And then I jerry rigged, like, a spare parts PC that just, like, wasn't even good enough to record Audacity on. Like, the write speed isn't fast enough. So I was like, damn it. Like, now all those are, like, in the dumpster, and I'm fully on, like, this laptop that I have now. But now it feels good to be, like, back and in it, like, it was definitely a time that it sucked to just have, like, my computer be down and then trying to deal with, like, that and a million other things. And then I put together the spare PC, and then that sucked. And I was like, damn it, I spent a weekend, like, putting this PC together, like, but that's why it's been good to be back. And that's why I'm excited for, I think, like, kind of like Cam said, the future of, everything we're going to keep doing and everything we're going to keep making. And that's definitely, it's something I definitely still want to just put more time into and more effort into. And I've definitely been happy to have, like, the outlet, kind of like I said, and that's why I'm kind of excited for the future growth.
Yeah, for me, there's been I also just left the job I've been at for the last few months, and I'll be starting kind of a new job here in about a week from now. And well, that wasn't really like a mental drain on me or anything like that. It was definitely oh, I'm gonna have, like, way more energy and be way more excited to be doing the things. And I've been very fortunate in that pretty much since the pandemic times and stuff, I've been able to work from home, and it's that's a double-edged sword of, like, I'm working in front of this double monitor setup all day, and then I hop on and do podcast recording, 3 or 4 nights a week or whatever. And so this couch cushion definitely has like a significantly larger imprint of my ass than it did 2 years ago, just because of logistics. But one of the things, in interviewing for this new job that I'm going to be going in for, one of the questions that they occasionally asked me was like, "What's something you're proud of?" And I talked about the fact that, especially during this pandemic, like having kind of a team of people to podcast with and sit down with on a weekly basis, not only was like good for just kind of keeping that nerdy site going, but it was like so helpful for my own mental state, because it was keeping me connected to the world, instead of otherwise I would have just like been staying in this like as a hermit, as I very easily could slip into. And it kept me connected. It kept me like as a social like existence, in a very real way. And I was incredibly grateful for that. Obviously, it's like it sucked when we lost Ben and Chloe and Christian pretty much all in one like brief go of a month or whatever. But I think we've talked about this maybe in the in the 1 year anniversary last year. Like, the writing was almost all on the wall with them anyway. I mean, especially Chloe. Like, Chloe was always going to go off and do her own thing and be a crazy superstar that she's going to be. But for both of them, or like the three of them, like they were working on kind of the two independent projects for that nerdy site that I wasn't really hands-on with. Like, that Wannabe Film class was Ben's baby, and he kind of was the driving force behind that, including editing and getting that to me. And so pretty much like he sent it over to me, and I uploaded it and got it all like ready for publishing and stuff. But that was pretty much my only involvement on that. And so a couple months before they ended up leaving, they started kind of missing their some episodes here and there and stuff like that. And I would, I'm not, I having burnt out twice before in these kinds of like content creation games, I'm always going to be like, hey, if you need to take a week off and you need to like do what you need to do, absolutely do that. And so it was kind of like, I just need to know if I should be expecting to upload something this week, or do we need to kind of let people know, hey, no episode this week. And so as they started kind of missing episodes, I was like, I think the end is probably pretty near on this anyway. And so when that came to pass, I wasn't surprised by it. And of course I wish them best. And
Well,
they're
yeah.
they're kicking at, like, Ben's now doing, he's an assistant for some horror YouTuber that he's like really into. So that's awesome. And I'm super happy for him. Chloe, of course, out there crushing it and enjoying Final Fantasy 14 a few weeks ahead of me, as we've both been diving into that game. And then same
Well, it's
with,
also Ben was planning on leaving to go back to school.
yeah, I mean, like, yeah.
He was getting ready for his master's program. So he
Mhm.
would like, it's like, oh, Ben, you're not, like, what's going on? And it'd be like, oh, well, I'm working on this part for my application for my master's program. And it's like, okay.
Yeah.
And Chloe was doing more and more stuff, like with other companies, as an independent Twitch streamer. And Christian was dealing with like what Christian was dealing with. And so, like, yeah, it's like it all happened at once, but like it all made sense. Like,
Yeah.
you said, writing was on the wall, like door was already halfway open.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so when it finally hit and they were like, hey, we're looking to go, I was like, of course, no problem. And just because of like my own, like I talked about, I think, I don't know if I talked about it with anybody on the site or anything, but like the idea of like bringing on new voices and stuff like that, like I definitely thought about it a ton. And I think at least Cameron and I talked about a few people.
We've talked about it a number of times.
And for me, some of the names that got thrown around is like, hey, let's invite them. I was kind of like, they're out there doing their own thing and they're killing their own thing. I don't really like, and I don't know if I have anything to offer them, to bring on, them as a site. But it was definitely
last time
something.
we talked about it. It was people who had just recently been.
It was like, it was Dual Shockers people. I mean,
it was Dual Shockers people.
Yeah.
The people who now have their platforms that they established afterwards, which is great for them and awesome, and like we love it. but like at the last time we seriously talked about bringing people on it was when they had, and I use this term in the literal sense and not in the kind of social sense, but they had been deplatformed.
Yeah.
Like their platforms had been taken away from them. And so we were like, well, we can offer them a platform. And
Yeah.
when we were still kind of mulling things over, they, points of progress got made.
Yeah. And that
Cam,
was
Cam
to
Final Mix ended up like going out on IGN on a bunch of stuff. So, they there's no,
yeah, it was one of I mean, like
they did not miss out.
Cam Hoggins in particular is one who like has repeatedly kind of like poked me about that Ultimate Video Game List show season 3, because it was definitely something I wanted to bring back, and one of the things that the pandemic, like I guess it's partly pandemic and partly just doing everything else I've been doing for That Nerdy this last year. The reason I'm like ready to and will likely be retiring Ultimate Video Game List show like formally is that I've realized I'm too introverted to reach out and bring in other people for that. Like, and I know that I could find those other people, and I know that there's been an interest, but I've realized that I'm too introverted of a person to want to do it. Like, I love the idea of that show. It's just it's too taxing on my mental energy to try and like get people in together and try and schedule that for like a 10-week block of time for the seasons that we do with that idea and stuff. And so that's like that was a hard revelation that I've kind of had to make over this last year. And it's that coupled with like I don't typically put the call out to bring on guests for the shows and stuff like that. It's I have you guys as kind of like a internal network, and if nobody else can do it, I'm sooner going to just sit down and record a solo episode on a couple topics than try and reach out and like part of it is always struggling against that, like feeling like I'm bugging somebody, especially because everybody has, there are so many other projects that they're working on stuff. So I don't really want to reach out and be like, hey, do you want to come and do this? And then other times I do reach out to somebody and then they just kind of ghost or don't respond and whatever. Again, they're like, I get that they're all busy.
Reinforces that feeling that you're bothering people. Yeah.
But yeah, so it's very much been a kind of a, I'm content enough with kind of like our small team and relying on our small team, or maybe an over reliance on our small team, that's definitely something that I at another point, and maybe if a pandemic hadn't happened, I would have been more eager to be more active and kind of reaching out. But then it is also like a ton of the people that I would have brought on for shows and brought on as guests and stuff do have their own other things that they're doing on a weekly basis. And hey, I want to bring you on. Oh, but we record the same night, so we it doesn't really work out, and we kind of run into those issues.
I think if we bring back that Ultimate Video Game List show, it will have to be in a different format or a different kind of thing, because I just don't think when we originally did it, it was us internally, and then when you did it externally, it was at a time when I think a lot of those people were open and able to.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that as the pandemic happened, people were stuck inside, took on more projects, took on a lot more stuff. I think a lot more platforms have been made during the pandemic than I think otherwise would have happened.
Yeah.
And I think that a part of that is also, on top of it, is that Ultimate Video Game List show is a 10-week project.
Yeah.
And that's a big commitment for a group of people to do. And it's when everybody else has everything else they're juggling, it's not practical to ask that. If we do bring it back, it'll have to be in a different kind of format, or it'll have to be after things have changed somewhat in the future.
Yeah, it's an idea.
I hate the idea of retiring anything, because it's like it's out for good, but then we can always say we're bringing it out of retirement.
I mean, yeah, it's definitely an idea that I still want to eventually, when like PAXs are happening again and like we're all comfortable going. I would love to do it at a PAX as like a speed round, as a panel of like, hey, let's get 4 people from around the industry and just do like, okay, we're going to spend 30 minutes of this panel. You guys are going to be like coming up with the games. We're just going to kind of bum rush through them. And then, afterwards we're going to rank them, with the audience feedback or something like that. And by the end of 55 minutes, we're going to come up with the best 20 games ever, with those same rules of like 1 game per franchise, 1 game per console. I like
rad.
that form
I
of
love
it that
those
is a
shows,
much
man.
more
So
like
good.
manageable version of it.
Yeah.
But another aspect that really kind of just weighed on me, and it was another, obviously factor to this, is especially for the last year, because for our second year we made the move to video stuff, and so I've been on everything we've done for for the last year pretty much, save the few episodes that Cameron did of Emily is Away 3 and like an unboxing that Cameron did. I've been on every like I've been basically doing 3 podcasts a week, and a couple let's plays every week for the last year. And that's just like, while I've not become burnt out, and I'm definitely trying to like manage myself so that I don't become burnt out, it does limit, and it is like that one other thing would be enough to make me burn out. And so like there's definitely been like, I'm just stretched thin enough that I can't take on some of those other ideas. And so like when you guys came and said like, yeah, we want to do this conversational podcast, it was one of those, I was like, I'm already doing enough. I guess that is the other thing that I wasn't on this last year. And we had those done to varying degrees of video versions of those shows.
Yeah.
And so that was like another element of, I'm all supportive for doing something like that. I just can't be involved because I'm already pulled in every other direction. And so that's just another element that I've kind of been looking at in terms of some of that stuff. It's the same kind of thing of like, oh, it'd be like, I mean, when we started this, I was like, oh, I would love us to be doing more Twitch streaming. And the original idea was like, we can kind of like take shifts, and maybe I'll do a stream on Tuesdays or something like that, and Cameron can stream on Thursdays, or like whatever, that be, and it can be done through the That Nerdy Site Twitch channel. And very quickly I was like, oh, but like as I'm trying to like produce 3 to 5 podcasts a week, I don't have time to hop in and do a stream, or I don't really want to. I don't want to be streaming and having to be like on. I want to just be playing a game and enjoying it for myself. And so the compromise that I did there was like, I'll do these let's plays, and I'm doing those on my own time. I can just kind of record them and knock them out, talk to the camera as if somebody's, hopefully watching. I look at the YouTube numbers. They're often not. Like, which is also, like I definitely don't get bogged down in that kind of stuff. But there was definitely a run there where like, Cameron, you would plug my let's plays or something, be like, yeah, Trevor's doing really great stuff with this, and I'm looking at the views and I'm like, nobody has watched this, so I know that Cameron has not watched these videos that he's plugging and he's talking me up on, but thank you anyway.
Yeah. Listen, I don't like, here's like, do I have time to watch all your, I don't
No, I don't blame you for that at all. No,
no, I know.
But it's the like, you're presenting as if you watched it. I'm like, I know you haven't watched it.
How do you know that I watched it with the That Nerdy Sites?
Because it would still count as a view.
Oh.
And they had 0 views on them. So yeah. But yeah, that's definitely where I've been a lot this last year, is just like the pandemic. Definitely having the podcast let me stay connected with people. But then if people were busy with other things, I was, I'm happy to just sit down and still knock out a solo show, which is definitely something that I wouldn't have thought about doing, in a time prior, or like, because I think a lot of us came up in the like kind of funny methodology of like you have to get a schedule and stick to it. And even they've laxed on that, over the years, as you do. But then seeing other people out there doing like just kind of like one-man podcasts or something like that is just kind of a, hey, we don't have a regular podcast this week, so we're going to still just do like 10 minutes on whatever. Having a show like That D Plus show that like already has enough of a formula to it that I can do that pretty easily on some of those things, like really helped like ease me into being okay and comfortable doing that. But yeah, that's definitely just some of the thoughts I've had kind of reflecting back. Like losing some people was definitely a blow, and it would have been great to kind of like, bolster our ranks, especially in the conversation around that. It very much was like okay, if we're bringing somebody on, I don't want it to just be another white guy. Like I would want to add a diverse voice. And then a lot, like I look around at like a lot of the diverse voices that I would want to collaborate with, and they already have other, they already have their own platforms. And so it was like, oh, I don't, like the people I would want to bring on don't need that nerdy site, because of like, it was, again, I didn't think I was going to have anything to offer them in regards to like, oh, if they want to write something, I can sit down and certainly edit it, but like, they're getting better feedback from the IGNs or whoever else they're kind of working with in that regard. So
it kind of also says something that our, like, the people we look at and see as peers are the people who are at that level, because we've been doing it for such a long time. I mean, between Trevor, you and I, we have 10 years of podcasting. And that's me adding them together. Otherwise it wouldn't make sense. But I, like you mentioned about like, having to do formulaic or like having to get comfortable doing a solo podcast. The solo cast of of Naughty Gamers was born because I needed to put out a podcast that week, because I was part of that mentality. We have a schedule, we stick to it. The chain will not be broken.
mm-hmm.
I didn't break that chain for 4.5 years. It takes a toll on you, man.
Yeah.
Like it's okay to break chains, because guess what? The chains that we're talking about are made up.
Yeah.
They don't exist.
It's okay
to like let them go.
I think in that regard, apart, like we lost the episode from PAX East. So we missed that episode. And then I think there was like one holiday in there where it was just like, I could have sat down and did like a, a solo show or whatever, but everybody else was busy. And I was just like, screw it. We're just going to say it's a holiday. We're going to miss this week. But other than that, I think every show has like gone out on a weekly basis in its schedule. We might there were a couple of That D Plus shows that I've like pushed a day just so we could do whatever was, out on that Friday. But yeah, and so again, I'm proud of the amount, the quantity and quality of what we've put out this last year. But it's a lot, and I get that it's like, I mean, it has taken a toll in my ability to enjoy other people's stuff. That's something I'm sad and I miss. Like I don't catch nearly as much kind of funny stuff as I used to, just because the time that I would be listening to it, I'm usually either sitting down and playing a thing or watching a thing to sit down and record a podcast about, and so be it. And so as a result, like I also feel bad about not being able to check in with a lot of the friends stuff that they're a lot, because we have a ton of friends that are doing great stuff. And I just never even have a chance to really click on those things or boot them up. So there's definitely an element of, while I'm happy with like what we're doing and that I've been able to like kind of keep in touch, I also feel like I'm almost isolated from a larger community that I used to be a part of, and that's just kind of the pandemic in general, really. But yeah. Any final thoughts on kind of the last 2 years before we wrap up? We'll have I think more of a I have basically planned to do a write. Oh, that's another thing, is like the last review I did was, I think, Final Fantasy VII Remake last year. And then just between the pandemic and everything else, I've just been like, I don't have the energy to sit down and write a thing, really. Like I did write-ups for like Game of the Year stuff, and that was probably the last like real writing I've done. I know Logan had like talked about wanting to do at least one written piece every month for the year, and he's 6 months overdue on his last one. So, we'll see what happens there. But that's definitely writing on the site took a back seat, and I think a lot of that comes from, I did write for Trevor Trove every day for a year, and that burnt me out twice.
Yep.
And so I was like, I don't want like, if I'm really compelled to do a written piece, I will do a written piece, but I just I don't have the time and the bandwidth, so I haven't really delved into that. Frank, you were going to jump in with something.
No.
Oh, you weren't. Sorry, I saw you go to turn on your mic earlier when I had asked if anybody had anything else, and I saw you do that. So then never mind. Jazz, any final thoughts from you?
My proudest gaming moment is still when we played Until Dawn.
Mm-hmm. And
I called
you predicted the end of that game
Yeah,
hour
I still
in.
think about that like all the time. So I'm glad we're doing this because I got that out of it.
Yeah, there you go. That was a
Do
solid moment.
you know? Nobody say anything. Do you know, Jazz, how Bioshock ends? Like, has that been ruined for you?
Um, I don't. Maybe I don't think I could tell you. I think if somebody told me, I'd be like, people told me bits and pieces of that.
I just kind of want to play it now, and I just wonder if you would also guess that like an hour in. Like, I just wondered if that was going to be like a running theme.
Could be fun.
Yeah, I can
And
see the future.
and that would also really, get at Logan because of how much he loves that game. So that could be a fun thing for you guys to do because you guys are potentially planning on getting together for an anniversary stream, right? So
Yes.
maybe that can go on the docket for
Ooh, Bioshock. Oh, 100%. You guys should do that. That's gonna be so good.
The
Yeah,
first
especially
one's pretty short too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Nice.
you can like if you're not a cat like I was in it, you can totally get through that game.
Yeah. All right. Cam, any final thoughts from you?
Yeah, Al Pacino, like everybody, like I never really picked up on it, but Al Pacino goes hooah in a lot of movies.
He does, yeah.
Solid
I think there's a
solid
meme
drop
on
in there,
Screen
Cameron.
about that.
Yes, if I had any last thoughts, that's the last thought I had.
It's almost like that's why that's the impression that people always have is because he says hooah a lot.
Boy.
Okay. Yeah, so we're happy 100th episode, everybody.
Yay.
We'll
Yay.
we'll see how long this train keeps a rolling. We'll do we have our official kind of anniversary is November 1st, so we'll do stuff on and around that date and kind of announce significant changes and stuff to the site if we have any in the works. But stay tuned for that.
And it's my birthday because I'm old.
It is indeed,
Hey.
yes. Our anniversary also coincides with Cameron's birthday. That was a complete coincidence, really, but it's
Also, the
it's
anniversary
more
of when I came out. So.
indeed, yeah. It's like nowadays I think about it in the context of, oh, that's right, I was out there for like the launch. I flew out to Austin, and just like the fact that I was out there, like Halloween just kind of like we didn't do anything. We were just busy like putting finishing touches on the site, getting ready for our our stream that weekend or whatever. It's like that's what I did a couple years ago. Ooh, how the time has changed. Well, that is gonna do it for this episode. Happy 100th again, everybody. Thank you for joining me to discuss and reminisce, and then also talk about crappy things like Venom and cool things like Ted Lasso, and it's also incredibly great having Jazz back on some of this stuff. So hopefully that will become more of a regular recurrence moving forward.
And I'm sorry that I had to ruin our 100th episode with Venom 2.
Oh, it's okay.
I'm sorry I had to bring that trash into this good time.
Something had to ruin it.
Quite all right. So let us go around the metaphorical table with any plugs we have. You can follow Jazz at Jazz_Foster. Anything you want to give a shout out to there, Jazz?
Yeah. My job, the game company I work for, we're nominated for an Indiecade Award, and that stream's going to be October 23rd, I think. Yeah. For a little game called Surrealist Dinner Party that we're very, very proud of. So if you have the time, you can check that out. And also that weekend, I'm pretty sure, it's going to be the first episode of a D&D podcast that I'm going to be a part of. I think it's all secret, so I won't give any spoilers for now, but that'll be coming out same weekend, somewhere around October 23rd, 24th. So keep your eyes out for that. I'll plug them on Twitter.
Very cool.
Oh, yeah.
You follow Frank at Irrelevant Jokes. Anything you want to give a shout out to there, Frank?
Yeah, just a quick shout out to one of our other podcasts that we mentioned here before, to That D Plus Show. The most recent episode for last week was you and I talking about the new Lego Terrifying Tales. It's kind of like a Treehouse of Horrors, but with Lego. And it's just surprisingly fun. I liked the other Christmas holiday special a little bit more, but these random Lego specials they do are like weirdly kind of fun, and they play with Star Wars in an interesting way. So I recommend people check that out.
Cool. You can follow Cameron at Rev Cabot. Anything you want to give a shout out to there, Cam?
Yeah, I just want to say, congratulations to Greg and Jen Miller.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
the proud parents of Benjamin James Miller, a couple days old. I want to give a massive shout out to them. Greg and Jen have been, really supportive of us over, between having you on Games Daily, after the launch and everything else, and so wanted to give them some support and share some love, and also they got themselves a cute baby.
Indeed. Yeah, shout out to them.
So-
And I don't know if
Yeah.
you saw Gary and Leah Witta
Oh yeah, Gary and
announced
Leah.
they also
Witta also, yeah.
had a secret
Like
baby.
They have a-
keep it a secret.
I didn't
for
know
9
that. What?
months.
Yeah,
We have a
today.
baby. Yeah, Gary Witta and his wife Leah have finally they've been waiting a long time to try to get another kid, and they got another one.
Yeah.
Snatched
That's
her
wild.
right off the
Congrats
streets
to
of
them,
San
too.
Francisco.
Don't say that much.
He didn't say how he got them. To be fair, too. Yeah, he's like, I have another kid
No,
now.
it's very clear. It's been a long journey for them to get this kid, and it's worked out. And congratulations to them, because that's also a cute baby.
There you go. Yeah. Congrats to all the pandemic babies from our friends in and out of the industry. You follow me at Trevor J. Starkey. I will kind of echo Frank's shout out with just kind of a continuation. That D Plus show is we're doing a full Halloween themed month of things. So yeah, this last week's episode was Terrifying Tales, Lego Star Wars. The upcoming episode is going to be Muppets Haunted Mansion, which I sat down and watched this weekend, and it's a fun little time. So I look forward to anybody that wants to join me talking about that this coming week. Then we'll have some Simpsons Treehouse of Terror stuff, Treehouse of Horror. I always screw that up. I always go for the alliteration, but they went with Treehouse of Horror. I even had to, like, when I was putting together the episode notes for the Lego Star Wars Terrifying Tales thing, I originally had it in there wrong and had to correct it before we published it everywhere. But yeah, that'll be there. And then at some point, I'm going to sit down with Logan because he and I did Halloween Town last year. So we're going to follow that up with Halloween Town 2. Again, anybody else that wants to join for that is welcome, but it's Halloween Town 2. I don't
So it's great.
expect you to want to really sit down and do that, but feel free.
Oh, there's a joke in there that is at the beginning of that movie that has stuck with me for years, and I'm so excited for you to hear it, Trevor.
Oh God, I'm going to hate this, aren't I?
It's a whole bit. It's super dumb, and it's been with me for years. I'm so excited.
Cool. That's all I need to know that's going to be a rough one for me. But yeah, so that's what we have to look forward to on that D Plus show for the month of October here. You can follow all of us over at That Nerdy Site or go to thatnerdysite.com for all the latest from us, which, again, as we kind of touched on, isn't a lot these days apart from just kind of like the podcast uploads. But that doesn't stop Logan from trying to spin that we do like a ton of writing on there on every episode of That News You Care About, because I'm pretty sure Logan doesn't actually know what we're doing these days anymore, guys. But anyway.
We can't let him know that.
I mean, he's not going to listen to this episode. We're fine.
If he leaves, we're going to be under the necessary requirement for the restaurant we like to go to.
While we're at it, one of the ducks is hidden in Logan's fancy loafers.
Yes.
He won't listen to this, so he will not know. No one tell him.
Yeah, that'll be the last one he finds, and we'll be like, we gave you that answer in episode 100.
You said listen to episode 100.
We gave you that one.
Episode, and you didn't listen to
We
it.
gave you that one for free, Logan. Fancy loafers.
I can't wait for the future though when he's like getting married and he goes to put on his shoes and he finds this duck.
Oh,
And it's
yeah.
like years and years and years and years from now.
I'm gonna be there, just ready to laugh.
Jazz and I joked about it. I was like, he's not going to find that one until he goes to like a wedding or something.
Yeah.
Yep. So there it is.
You should find it more regularly because you should always check your fancy loafers and dress shoes that you keep in a closet for black widows and other spiders.
I mean, why would I want to like, if that's a possibility of I'm going to find those there, why would I want to do that frequently?
Because if you check it frequently, you won't run the risk of just sliding them on and then having like a black widow in there.
I guess.
Sure.
I guess. But he does not do that. So
More prevalent for us in Arizona, scorpions.
Yeah, there you go.
Is usually my suggestion. Check for scorpions, but.
Anyway, if you liked what you heard, once again, please remember to rate, review, like, subscribe, share the podcast with your friends, all that fun stuff. And if you do feel like supporting us on Patreon, you can do that at patreon.com/thatnerdysite, where every patron of $1 or more gets early access to a monthly bonus episode of this very show. This month's early access episode is me and Jazz talking about Halloween memories and fun stuff like that, so you can go check that out. But if not, that'll go live to everybody on Halloween Day at the end of the month. So yeah, Thank you again all for joining me. Happy 100 episodes. We've done it for this one. Now we don't have to do big, shindigs for all the rest of the podcast when those hit in a few months' time or whatever. But thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening. As always, stay nerdy and be good to each other.